Hi, and welcome back to Crusade Media. This is Kory Muniz, and I'm here with John Paul Rice. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we're very honored to have you here. I just recently viewed John's new film. It's called A Child's Voice, and we're here to discuss a little bit about how you came into doing that. But first, I look at your resume, and you've done a lot of great work over the years, and especially working with, you said, filmmaker Edgar Michael Bravo.
Yep.
And producing independent feature films that focus on narrative storytelling. But the interesting thing to me is that you combine the topics and you humanize them in a way that most producers and companies don't. Right. In Hollywood. They tend to go towards the narrative that mainstream filmmakers push.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really brought me to loving this film is the fact that you tell a story that's so right on, so timely, but yet in a way where you get lost in the story and not the fear of what's going on.
Right.
And that as it progresses, it moves you into action. And that's what really, really moved me. So John, we have a copy of the trailer, and with your okay, we're going to go ahead and show that. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Great. Let's see that.
So do you know who that was shooting at you?
Stop, you little bitch!
The guy in the pickup?
You piece of shit!
He was my boyfriend.
So why would your boyfriend want you dead?
This man tried to convince my boyfriend to start kidnapping kids and sell them.
I understand. You fucking understand!
Top quality. What are you waiting for?
I said if you fucking run, Bill will find you. His friends will fucking find you. They will hurt you.
Help me. I'm getting stronger.
So John, please tell me how you did your research for this film, and what was in you that brought you to the subject.
Wow. So for the research part of it, I think, to be quite frank, the election of Donald Trump kind of turned everything inside out, for better or worse. It woke a lot of people up. And my and Edgar's journey over the last year and a half to 2 years was learning. Learning how we had gotten here. Learning what the government had kept from us for so many years. I literally did like an entire summer a year ago of YouTube binge watching on what you would call conspiracy theories, but really we know they're conspiracy facts. The questions behind 9/11, the questions about geoengineering, our poisoned water, our poisoned ecosystem, our food, just a whole range of taboo and things that people have been talking about for a long time, but have always kind of been labeled outside on the fringe. I've always known about human trafficking, but it was a successive kind of one thing led to another. There was an interview that Robert David Steele did earlier in, I think, January, February of 2017. that really just kind of knocked me and Edgar back on our feet. And it was talking about this pedo ring, this pedophilia ring in Washington, D.C., that had been there for decades. And this was the Achilles heel of a lot of people in the deep state, right? So first time hearing that, want to know a little bit more. What's this guy? He seemed very authentic, very credible. And then we started digging. And we came across the book, The Franklin Scandal, which is something that happened in Kansas 30, 40 years ago. It was a prominent star in the Republican Party, rising Lawrence King, and how they were ritualistically and satanically abusing these kids and murdering them and trafficking them. And there was a massive cover-up that led all the way up to the top in the government. This is well documented, and all the people that refused to back off when they were told by the FBI, and they let the people that they had caught go, and let the children that they had rescued from these people back to them.
Oh my gosh.
Those people in that town that were involved refused to back down, and all of them were killed. In one form or another, they found themselves dead, or they found themselves hung, or they committed suicide, and that sort of thing. Okay, that's one story. But then, because of the internet today, we have access to survivors, people who were trafficked as children by the elite. And they speak in very clear details and terms what happened to them and their story. They saw horrific acts that are unconscionable about what human beings do to each other. And not really all of us, but just this particular group. You learn about bloodlines, you learn about movements throughout history, the people behind them, going back to Nazism and some of the elite in America's relationship with them. Alan Dulles, the CIA comes to mind. And then you get into tracking kind of a trajectory and a history and taking more of an objective look back. And then you have somebody like Ronald Bernard who comes into the picture, a guy who was on the inside in this global elite of 8,000, and he had been moving up steadily in that world, rewarded with wealth and power and riches and women beyond his wildest dreams, even as a millionaire at 20. They gave him access to everything, and he was out there finding, getting what we call, maybe just to summarize, dirty money, funneling it all around the world, devaluing currencies, destroying companies, destroying countries, all the war, everything tied to this system. And he did a 5-part interview series with, I think it's called DVMTV. It was Dutch media. It was the first time that somebody on the inside had told what it was like and how he got out and why he left, was because he was brought into a church where, there's people wearing hoods and naked women, and he thought it was just silly. But it became very serious for him when they offered him to sacrifice a child. And he said at that moment, he broke down. And he stopped accepting their assignments and had to get out. And he started looking at that world in a whole other way. All these people that he was working with that were massively powerful, they all knew what was going on, what these people were doing. But he said, we were common criminals. And we were criminals. But he said, you could talk to anybody about any issue, somebody's murder, somebody's death, we would joke about it. If somebody committed suicide because we had destroyed their company and they lost their life, we would laugh and we'd joke about it. But for them, it was the moment that anybody mentioned pedophilia, they would just lose it. They would lose their minds. And he said that it was too much. And he started talking about how they're Luciferian and how they believe in the destruction of life. How these are human beings that occupy the highest positions of power in the globe, in the world. And they are involved in all of the horrors that are going on in the world. This is not the majority of what human beings want. It's not because we're just so complex. All these excuses that, you know, kind of get digested out into the public, they're directly related to the people in positions of power. All the wars, all the poverty, all the starvation, all the famine, everything. And it's been going on for a long time.
Right. All the depopulation schemes.
Right. All these conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But he said we live in this matrix. And then I started, just the whole progression of it was starting to look back at the trajectory since World War II, and even before that, but really since World War II, what we had been on a course to do. And, you know, expressed politically, expressed socially, expressed financially. So we put all of that together, and we wanted to... Edgar was actually over in Australia, in Melbourne, trying to get another project off the ground for 2 months. I was here in LA, staying up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, watching hours of YouTube, and I sent him some of this stuff, and then I sent him the book, and I said, "You got to read this stuff. This is really, I mean, if this guy's telling the truth, which he seems to be, he's, you know, he's emotionally, he's, you know, he's, you'd have to be a really kind of very sophisticated liar." Of a pathological level to make that up and convey real emotions and his own sort of resentment for
And what would the benefit be to him?
Right.
To lie about that.
Right. And then you learn in the later parts how they tried to destroy him, how they tried to put him away into prison under false pretenses. They had a profile on him, they had blackmail ready to go, get him in the courts, shut him up, don't talk about this, don't challenge us. His story is an inspiration, should be an inspiration to everybody because of what he has done and what he is doing now. So those pieces, from the election to deep dive and then coming out on the other side of it, why it meant something to me, why I wanted to do it. There was a moment in our research where one of the women, who was a child, described the experience of one of these rituals that she was involved in, and talked at length. You know, when we were talking about rituals, we're not talking about just like little satanic chants and this and that. These are people who are cutting children open. These are people who are trying to incite an adrenaline rush in these kids to frighten them such to a level and degree that there is actually a hormone and chemicals released in the body that these individuals believe if they take that out of you through your blood that it gives them some kind of high, and there's actually evidence that there's research that shows this is almost like LSD.
It's like adrenaline.
It's an adrenaline, yeah, it's adrenaline. So, but when she described that she had had 12 forced abortions by the age of 14, and she had a 3-year-old daughter, the one that lived, she didn't know who the father was. And she saw them take the aborted fetuses, and I don't need to describe what they did. The trauma that she has had to overcome just to have some semblance of reality. And the understanding that I know from having done a film about child abuse prior to this, the root, like it all connected. It is like the root of this is the anti-mother and father that is human. This is the non-human reptilian part of our brain that is being I won't call it nurtured. It's being like you're stripping all the humanity away from people. And our human brain is when you have loving parents, loving to their child, loving of each other, they'll sacrifice, they'll kill for their kid to protect them. This is the exact opposite of that. This is a reptile that will eat their own. And they can smile, and they can be charming, and they can be intelligent. But that's just the face of it. And so it all kind of came back to the child abuse, what I know about abusers through my research and experience in life with other people, my own family. To blame the victim. It's your fault, you wanted it, you brought it on yourself, you deserved it. How dare you even suggest? Once you fight back, you get punished, and you get labeled, and you're the one who's manipulating, you're the one who's lying, you're the one who's making all of this up. Where does that come from in people? Like really, what kind of an imagination could a child have to conceive of such horrors without there being anything there to begin with?
Right,
to see that.
To have the experience to back it.
Right. So all of that and our conviction and Edgar, because he wrote and directed it. But this was a shared creative process, and not that doesn't, he's the one who did it. It would not be possible without him. But we were in tune, like all of our craft, all of everything that we have done in our previous 5 films came into this one. And it started as a web series. It's going to be a 5-part episodic web series. The cast and the talent that we brought on this picture, the crew that we brought on this picture, we knew within one day, he did. He saw that he had gold here with the actors. He said, John, we can't waste it. We can make a feature. I thought, like, how are we going to do that? We have a script, it's locked, we got a schedule, and he did it. He pulled it off. We shot all of the pages in 10 days, including the additional scenes. Not at some breakneck speed. We then did testing, a couple screenings. We went back and we knew that there was other parts of the story that needed to be fleshed out. And creatively we came up with the trajectory for Rudolph and Daniel, the two, Christy and the boyfriend. And Tim was always there, but we didn't really add much of him. It was all their stories, their backstories, and how all of this came together. So you have a rising tension, you have a richness, and you show the complexity of them in the sacrifice and them in the business world, right? And you didn't have that before because you kind of learned all that later. So we moved some things around, but basically the core of it was all there, and then all we had to do was just kind of stretch it apart and grow it and expand it. And even that ending wasn't in the original script. It was the girl there in the but that part that where it became this and then after, that was a combination of Edgar talking to me and saying, think about it, let it. And then it hit me one day in the shower, and I got up and I called him and I said, this is it, this is what I'm feeling. And then the last little finishing touch were those moments of inspiration where you get a day before the final mix. My poor sound guys, but I told him, I said, here's the concept. I gave him specific notes, and I said, this is what we have to do, all because it was already there on the screen and I just had to see it. And when she said, I'll help you, and then it made me cry, but it was totally correct.
The ending is gold. It is golden, and interesting that you say that it was originally a series.
Yeah.
Because at the end, I wanted more. At the end, I was like, please make this into a series, please. And I kind of put it in my head like 13 Reasons Why. I don't know if you've seen that.
You're the second person to mention that.
Yeah?
Yeah,
But
today actually.
I wanted to see where those other bubbles were going to land, I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that hint twinklings. But it's so hard to impart, I believe, this kind of reality onto people who really believe that is just a conspiracy theory. How could humans being so evil? And I think we're now just seeing a little bit of it with the children that are being taken at the border and the babies, and the fact that our government is allowing them to be housed in such a brutal way. And these are children, these are infants. They just took a 6-month-old from the mom, the baby's still nursing. And to me, that states that there is just no empathy in our government to allow this to happen. And then to blame other people when you are the one that has the power to just stroke that pen and say, we're not going to do this, because it's not a law to begin with.
Right.
And,
it's a policy.
And a policy that has to do with if you are going to jail because you are doing something illegal. Not showing up at the border saying, please, I need help. Please review my case. Totally different thing. But if we can allow this to happen, and we see it on our TV, and we're not in the street marching about this, and we're not calling our congressmen or our local, senators and say, hey, you've got to stop this. This goes on, and this is so much deeper than what we're seeing. But it has to give us the acknowledgement that it is actually happening. And there are people out there that can do these kind of things to children, and we need to stop it. But the creative way that you put it together really brought me joy and brought my faith in the film industry back.
Wow.
Because lately, with all of the news of all the sexual deviancy, I guess I can put it, that's been going on in Hollywood, and of course we all know about the casting couch that's been there forever. But to really know how deep it is, and how there are actors and actresses that are leading people basically to the slaughter through the power that they wield as celebrities is just a very, very hard thing for people to take in and process, because then who do you trust?
Right.
And trust is such a big thing. As a parent myself, I was aware of this, and the issue of child abductions, and how many children get abducted each year and are never found, and then bodies are found, and nobody can find out who did it. And usually if you can't find out who did it, it's usually somebody with money behind it to be able to have people that clean it up for them. So and how long did it take for you to do the casting? Because I thought the casting was brilliant.
So that was that we started, I think the first weekend of casting was August 12th and 13th of last year. And we were finished by the end of September, beginning of October. Now, we were only doing it on the weekends, and I don't want to call it luck, but I searched and searched and searched for these people. Because we weren't going to be able to afford doing a union and big names, and of course we love to. I mean, if people were reacting to the script the way they do, you always want to be able to bring out your best and bring talent in. But I had already been through that in my other films. I've had disappointments with other scripts and people that read the script 2-3 times, had a real conversation, were ready to do it, for whatever reason couldn't. But I had confidence and a belief in what we were doing, that we were going to find the people that we needed to. Came from online casting websites, no agents, no managers. I've been doing casting now for 10 years, and I'm going to be very objective. I think I did a really good job on this one, but I think in my other films too. Casting is really consistent, and it takes Edgar too. It's casting. What we do with casting is I see something in that picture first, and I see something that's likable, that I want to keep knowing more about them. There's just something there that I'm connecting with, and not always does it pay off, but more often than not, I keep looking. The lead girl Angela, who plays Christy, she didn't have a reel. She had a GoPro video that I watched. I went to her YouTube channel. I listened to her her guitar playing that she did, and I heard something in her voice. And I felt a spirit and a sweetness and an essence to her. And I wanted to know more about that girl. I'd seen a lot of girls. There were some in there really talented, but there was something about her very unique, and it was just there. Joey, who plays Tim, raw talent, 19 years old, just had at that time just moved to Fresno from Maine, came out here to be an actor, took a bus down. I sent him. I saw him, and there were two males, but one really kind of stood out before him. And I don't know what it was. I mean, I liked the guy. I thought he was talented, but I just didn't connect with him. You know, on an emotional level. Like when I saw him, I was watching everything, and I was like, yeah, that's all. Like, not his fault. This is all a subjective process, right? Could have been fine with him. We would have been fine with him. There was something about Joey. And then he came in and he did his audition. And, you know, like, sort of, we met with him, we talked with him. That's kind of what we do. We do a pretty good job of validating people. We have the first audition, the callback, and then the final, and then we'll do a meeting. Just to kind of see, you know, is it manageable? Is it a good situation? And Joseph, our villain, had no contact information for him whatsoever. He submitted just his headshot on the website, and I had to schedule him and hope that he showed up. And he drove all the way up from San Diego, came in, just did a phenomenal audition, had an incredible presence. It was all of these different people that were brought together by the script and the characters and all of us together. This trust, this people call it a family, but there was a true love and care for all of them, especially once they met each other on set. And it's, you know, as a producer, it's one of the more beautiful and personal things that you see your creation come together and manifest and work together. And what you saw on the screen, what came through in the movie, was the spirit of all of them, along with the director and the script guiding it. But it was a great experience. Probably the best cast I've ever had, and not just in terms of talent, but the cohesiveness and the togetherness of those individuals and their dedication to the craft. I mean, what wonderful discoveries of talent. And I told Angela and Joey, I said, you know, this moment when you're, you know, in your long career ahead of you, you get very few moments like this where you have a great script, good film, and great performances. And these windows don't open for very long, but I said enjoy every step of the process, but you have to up your game to go to the next level, because you have raw talent and great ability, but you're now going to be matched with people who have an entire infrastructure around them of agent and manager and publicist and credentials and relationships. And in order to break into that, you can't just be, you know, that was great, that's what gets you in the door, but now you've got to deliver, and you got to deliver consistently, and you got to come with choices for them. Your talent level and your skill have to go up to another level, so you have to get stronger, and you got to get smarter, and you got to get better. Hopefully they do, and they learn with every step of that process. But I'm truly proud of each and every one of them for their contribution to this movie, because without them, it would be a different film.
And I was really just very impressed, the cohesiveness in bringing it back to what you were saying about how they all enjoyed and liked working together. I think that when you have that, you have a freedom that allows you to trust and go that extra mile, because you know that you're going to be in a safe place. And I have to give you kudos,
and
the people that helped you with the casting, because you created that. that just didn't come out of the ether. You
Right.
created that, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful story, and I want to see more. I want to see more of it, and I definitely want to see it again, and I'm gonna work on getting a showing together for you.
Oh.
But tell me, so we've heard you talk about it, talk about the cast. I think the sets were beautiful. Just everything. It wowed me how you brought different forms of filmmaking. You know, you've got the kind of documentary, factual parts of it, and then you have these supernatural element, which I was very surprised by, and liked that quite a lot. And the different elements of suspense, and where's this going to go, and how are these characters going to bring us into a reality of the tragicness of what happens in the first scene, which is so raw and so hard to watch, but keep watching. And it did make me want to keep watching, even though those bitty parts were quite terrorizing. But I wanted to see what would come out of that and how it was going to move forward. So what I would like our watchers to know is, how do they get to see this film?
Okay.
First of all,
today you can go to Vimeo.com and put in A Child's Voice. It's available for a 72-hour streaming for $3.99, and you can buy it and own it forever for $9.99. And even if you can't do that, if you can share the link with anybody, even if it's just one family member or a friend or on social media, the point is that we need to get this word out. We need to get this message out, this message of love, the care that we have for our fellow human beings and our children. So Vimeo.com, A Child's Voice, you can rent it today, and later this year we'll be rolling it out to other platforms.
great. And if somebody wanted to put together a screening, how can they get a hold of you to discuss that?
Yeah, if you would like to do a screening in any part of the country or the world for that matter, just send me an email, info at norestrictions with an SENT.com. So that's info at norestrictionsent.com. Just put it to my attention. I'm John Paul Rice. I'm the producer and president of the company. I'll be happy to work with you and figure out what we can do.
Thank you so much for coming in today. I'm really honored that you shared your time and your vision and your goals with this wonderful, wonderful film that is very timely and definitely a deeper part of the Me Too movement and things that we all have to consider and make sure that we're not the person that just is the stander by unless these things happen. If you see something, say something. If you see a child that things don't seem right, or a teenage girl or boy, and they seem to not have a sense of free will, do something about that. Talk to the people. Talk to the adult that's with them. And oftentimes, these people are like cockroaches. You turn on that light, and they scatter.
Yes.
So we need to turn on the light. Sometimes they will just leave the child if you say, "Hi, how are you doing? Are you this child's father? What a great day. Look at how pretty her hair is." Just get into a conversation and engage. You don't have to be mean, you don't have to be rude, but we have to step up and we have to bring this into the light. So thank you very much, John, for coming in today, sitting down with me and giving your time. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing this out and about and hearing about your next venture.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Take care.
You too.